The day wore on, and everyone had plenty of food and spirits at the last New Year's party of the year. I moved to the side of the house. The wide, shaded porch was perfect for what I was going to use it for. I sat in the shade of a coconut tree and leaned my back against a 4x4 post with my legs out in front of me. I was almost asleep when a tall young man with dark skin, no shirt, and straight black hair combed to the side came over to me. I had seen him hanging out with Loom before, but I didn't know his name. "Army?" he asked. "You Army?" I nodded a half-assed, sleepy nod with one raised eyebrow, and I asked why. He reached into a bag he had on the floor and produced a dirty green military field radio with a wind-up crank on the side. "Do you know?" he asked me. I said yes as I sat up and told him to put his finger on one of the two terminals. I gave the crank a twist and lit the young man up with a good jolt of electricity. The ancient Army radio still had it. The crank was a little stiff, but it loosened up after a few turns. "Choy-ee! Damn!" he shouted as he jumped back, not expecting the shock. Several kids playing on the porch had seen him jump and gathered around thinking that the young man was faking the jolt. I continued to shock all the brave ones until everyone became a believer. After the party and a short nap, my curiosity got the best of me. I wandered over to the house where the dark-skinned kid lived, which was just 2 houses down from High's house on the other side of the dirt sidewalk. I walked into his yard just as the kid came out of his rundown coconut house. He took my arm while I was still in motion and guided me around to the back of the house. He knew why I had come. He couldn't wait to show me what he had stored in the backyard. We walked behind the house to a small fenced-in bamboo shed where he kept a hog he was raising. I opened the gate and we went in with the hog. I motioned as if I was cranking the old radio up. At the same time, he slid a box out from under a pile of coconut shells. He lifted the lid of the bamboo and coconut leaf box that was about the size of a footlocker to reveal the contents. Inside were a few dusty relics that not many have in their backyard, sharing company with a pig. Inside the box were several articles that I had recognized to be American military. There lay the radio that we had fun with earlier, and under it were 2 pairs of large jungle boots partly worn out. Under those were 3 Army fatigue shirts, each with a MAC-V patch on the left shoulder. They were all missing the name tags. 2 light gray Air Force jumpsuits in the box had American unit patches on the chest, but they were just rags and they looked like they'd been ripped up in a dogfight, or maybe just rotted away. Under the fatigues on the bottom of the box were 2 U.S. Army helmets with the all-too-familiar peace signs drawn on the front of the helmet cover. One of the helmets, the one in worse condition, had a calendar on the side. This was the sign of a short timer. I asked him where these things had come from after I regained my breath, and he just held his arms up and imitated the noise a gun makes. I needed to know more. The chicken skin on the back of my neck and the top of my forearms told me to weep in mourning. My head flashed to Chief, the firebase, and our promise. The kid could only talk in motions and single words of English. His imitation of a mime just wasn't working. I needed to call on the boss to interpret. I didn't want to let everyone know what I was doing, so I walked back to get High instead of yelling for her like I usually do. The young man followed me, and we met with High in the back of the house where no one else could hear our conversation. Ask him where he got the stuff in this box. She didn't know what I was talking about at first, then it came to her, and me, just about the same time. Loom had been talking about this person in the van. He was the man that knew of the 12 Americans in a grave. Just the guy I wasn't ready to talk to, but just the guy I needed to talk to. Torn feelings, but I knew I couldn't leave this alone. My journey to the inside of the MIA search had begun from a vantage point that few will ever experience. The decision to follow through was the only thing I could do. How could I turn my back now? I asked, how did he get from his uncle? High interpreted in English.
His uncle was North Vietnam. He worked not too far away in what you say, prison. He uncle gave him father these when the prison closed and he moved for Hanoi.
The kid lowered his head and continued to talk to High.
Some men his Uncle Whit took these things from 12 American in jail before they buried them, long time ago.
You mean they buried this stuff?
No, they bury the people they come from.
This had gotten my attention.